Hello everybody, what's going on, and welcome back to another video. So this is going to be very much going to turn this down a little bit. There we go. This is going to be a bit of a rambly video, just trying to get more sort of advice and hopefully helpful videos out there for people that are in the game design industry, game development industry, or video game industry, board game industry, or people looking to get into it. Also, I'm going to be saying this a lot during, well, pretty much every video, which is going to come out on the channel for the next few weeks. I am in the middle of moving, so this is why the background looks like this. Hopefully within a couple of weeks, the background won't look like this anymore, and I'll be in my new place, and it'll be great. But yeah, this video is going to be what it's like working as a freelance designer. So I've been a freelance designer on and off for a good couple of years now. And I do it alongside either full-time work or contract work, just because I love making games, really, more so than anything. I mean, this is going to be something we're going to be talking about in the video, but the money's pretty decent, depending on who you're working with, but it's mainly just because I want to fill up as much of my time as possible, especially whilst I'm young and got energy, with making games. So yeah. Anyway, so what is it like? So this is the thing. So the good thing about being a freelance designer is that every project is very different. You work with a lot of different people. One of my most recent jobs as a freelance designer has been on a board game called the Uzzle Stack Royale. It's sort of like a pseudo sequel, but more just so like another game in the same line of games. For a game called the Uzzle, which is a dexterity game. And yeah, so I basically was contacted by one of the guys at the Uzzle company to make basically a remake of a game which was my first board game, actually, called Blockers, the Stacking Game, which is a stacking game. It's a dexterity game. And the reason why they wanted me to do that is because they were looking at making quite a similar game to mine. It so happens that they were actually currently in contact with the manufacturer which made my game. The manufacturer decided to, instead of just being like, yeah, okay, we'll make this game, and we're not going to worry about the other guy who made the other game. He was like, oh, this person already made a game very similar to this. Why don't you contact them and get them to make it for you? And so that's what happened. And I got contacted, I got an email. I thought it was kind of too good to be true, because it was a game which I already made, already done all the work for. And they were like, yo, do you want to make this game? And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, so that was probably the most recent work in terms of freelancing. And that sort of working relationship has been pretty good. One good thing which stems from freelance game design or freelance game development in any sort of scenario is that if you do a good job, often more work stems from that, which is great for the bank account, also great for making games. And yeah, so basically the way that worked, that whole scenario, is that got an initial call being like, yo, we want to initially buy the IP off you, but then we also want you to make a slightly different version of the game to be suited to the Uzzle. And the way that happened was I took the initial rule set from Blockers and I made it into more of like sort of a racing game, because Blockers was kind of a competitive solitaire game in which like everyone had their own turn. Whoever had the most points at the end of the game would win. It's almost like a dexterity Euro game in that regard, where everyone's just focusing on their own thing, and at the end you compare points, kind of thing. But this, the guy that hired me wanted it to be more of a real-time racing game. So that was one of the changes which I had to make, which I thought actually made the game definitely different, probably better in certain ways. Yeah, but overall it was a good change. And then I had to remake all the cards as well, because we had a different amount of components. But overall, the same components as Blockers, a stacking game. And yeah, that only took a couple of weeks to do, and then we had a game out of it. And that's another good thing as well about freelance game design when it comes to board games and when it comes to video games, is especially with board games though. Well, it depends on where you sort of are in your video game journey. If you're a one-man band or you're in a small team in your video game career, like in an indie studio, then it'll probably be a similar sort of scenario. But basically, when it comes to Crab Studios, if I come up with an idea and decide to pursue it in terms of a game idea, then it could be up to 2 years before that game gets out. Because I have to do every single element of the game outside of the artwork. And it takes a long time, and a lot of it isn't making games, it's doing other things, especially when you're manufacturing a physical product. It does take a lot of time, and it's very different than making a video game. But the good thing with freelance design is that you just do the bit that you love, you just do the design work, and then once the design work is done, then you just send off all the files, and then you wait, and then you get a copy of the game in the mail, and it's out on Amazon and wherever, and people can buy it, and it's another game that you've got in your portfolio. It's another game which you can say you designed, and it's been published and released, and that's really, really cool. I really, really like that about freelance design as well. There are a couple of negatives to freelance design. One is ownership, of course. I mean, but that's the case of working for any company which you don't run. You don't have ownership of the game. If the game does really well, you see minimal profits. Like the profit share is usually quite low, or the revenue share is quite low compared to if you just did it all yourself. But at the same time, more than likely, the reason why these companies have the money to be able to hire you is because they're very, very good at selling and distributing games, which is a value which can't be understated in this industry. I mean, it's the whole point, really. And if you're very, very good at that side of things, then, you know, it is an argument that you deserve that larger portion of the revenue, which completely makes sense. But so you'll be seeing sort of less money for your efforts in the long run. But oftentimes that also comes hand in hand with getting a lot more money than you would anticipate from just developing your own games in the short term, because it's before any games are sold, it's before any games are even manufactured. But sometimes, depending on the deal, it's before you even start work on it. So there's swings and roundabouts with that sort of thing, but it's pretty interesting. So moving on to another type of freelance design which I've done, which is video game freelance design, which is particularly level design in a project which I can't talk about at the moment because it's still in development. But that has been very, very interesting. So to try and be as specific as possible without giving anything away, I've been working with this one guy who's been making a horror narrative game for a while now. I think I've been on and off working with him for a good year or so. And the reason why this came about initially was it was just after I finished uni. I was definitely already working at a company called Sigtrap. I might have started working at Team 17 by then. I don't think I have. I don't think I was working at Team 17 at that point. I think it was probably near the end of Sigtrap. But yeah, a former person, a former fellow student, there we go, from my university course, messaged me and was like, yo, you're good at design, and my friend from, I think he's from either Canada or America, is looking for a level designer. We saw that you were good at level design whilst at uni. Do you want to do it? And I was like, send me his email, and we got talking. And it was a very, very cool experience, just not in a vain way of hearing him sell me the idea of the game, but more so I just love the idea of someone telling me why their game is great, because usually they know why their game is great and it's just about execution. I don't think anybody sets out to make a game knowing that it's bad and not being able to explain why it's good. And yes, so I jumped on a call, they explained to me the entire narrative, the ideas behind it, and basically said, can you achieve this through the level design and the puzzle design of these levels, which I want you to do? And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a go, I'm pretty sure I can. And that work, even though it's been sort of a lower priority for me, say if I've got that work on, but I've got Team 17, I've got Crab Studios, I've got all that stuff. It's very much like lower priority just because I've got so many things like sort of in my face right now I need to deal with. But whenever I've had the opportunity to work on it, and thankfully it's been a project that hasn't required very, very strict deadlines. But yeah, every single opportunity I've had to work on it has been very, very, very rewarding. Like, you can have freelance design, which is good for money. You can have freelance design, which is incredibly rewarding creatively. And that was definitely one thing which was very, very creatively rewarding, 100%. Like, it was insanely good. And I'm very, very excited for the game to come out. When it does come out, I will make a video, probably not specifically about it, but definitely about like a topic of level design or something like that, and then talk through the game, because it's a game which I would love to show off, because it's a game which I'm very, very proud of. And that's the thing as well, with game development. Depending on what type of job you're in. So like Team 17 at the moment, I get to work on like a bunch of projects at once, and then like every year there's like a release. But if you're working at an indie studio or even at a AAA studio where you're working on one game for like 3 to 5 years, you know, it's going to be a long time before a game comes out that you've worked on and then you get to see it. But when you've got like freelance design on the side, it's really, really cool to see like these games slowly trickle out, which you've had like which you've been working on or done like just had little touches to at some point, and you've left your mark on these games, and they're slowly coming out, and you see one like every few months, and it's really, really cool to see. And that's what freelance kind of gives you, because you don't have to be in the trenches every single day working hard to make this game. You can just offer the value which you can offer in short amounts of like short sprints, and you can get a lot out of it, definitely. And I think that freelance design in particular is something which is probably difficult to get into, and it's definitely a word of mouth / luck to be able to get into it. But if you ever have opportunity to do it, if someone comes to you and says, hey, can you do just like a quick level for me, and they don't even offer too much money, then but like, or any money really, just like being able to work on something if you have the time, something different, it can make the whole every other aspect of your career better, because you just like, you've got like that different, unique, creative input and output, because you get the input from you know, getting presented with the challenge of making this design from the beginning, but then actually being able to accomplish it and pull it off, and then the client is really happy with you, really happy with what you've given them. You know, it's super rewarding. But yeah, so pretty sure that's it when it comes to freelance design. Hopefully you like these more rambly videos. There's little elements of my experience in the industry so far, which is something which I kind of want to exploit and tell people about. And hopefully people find it interesting and potentially find it helpful. I think the main thing to take away from this is that freelance design has, and this is something which I've sort of implied throughout this video, there is no default amount of money which you'll get from it. It can range massively, like thousands of dollars, thousands of pounds different in difference between projects for the same amount of hours. It just depends on who your client is, how much they can pay you. But if these clients value your skill set, then you'll get the opportunity to work on stuff. And at least if you're not overloaded in terms of hours that you have, then I would 100% recommend just picking up any sort of little odd jobs that you get, because it can lead down some amazing paths and it can be really rewarding. But yeah, that's it from me. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you didn't think it was too rambly, but that's kind of the point of them. But yeah, anyway, I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye.